Buzz with Jess Lujan.
We're back and we're talking about political self-determination in the perspective of the Independence Task Force here. Dr. Michael Bevacqua is my studio guest. Doc, we're talking, of course, about the repercussions that this may have in the American Samoa as a result of their, if the courts should decide that that's right, this lawsuit is right, and yeah, they are U.S. citizens. What would that mean to us, and what would that open Guam up for as a result of a successful lawsuit in that end?
So for example, when I explain to my students kind of the place that the territories or even Native Americans are in relation to the United States, you could say that they're kind of stuck in legal mazes. The United States over the years has made all these decisions and set all these precedents which trap them in a certain relationship. Native Americans used to be independent sovereign nations. Now they're domestic dependent nations, and there's a process why the U.S. just kind of takes away all their sovereignty and puts them on reservations. And for territories, it's the same thing. There's a series of cases which all say basically that these territories don't have any rights except what we choose to give them. And so this case, for example, on the one hand, it is very appealing to people because it answers the question that bothers everybody. Are we really Americans or not? What are we to the United States? We get all these messages from everywhere that we're part of the United States, but then try and order something online, and suddenly you're not part of the United States.
Suddenly you're international.
Suddenly you're international. Try and vote on So You Think You Can Dance. Suddenly you're not an American anymore. And so try and vote for president. Try and get your congresswoman, to do something in Congress. And so people want to know, like, everything tells me we are, but are we really? And so a case like this is attractive because people will think, oh, finally we'll get an answer as to whether we're really Americans or not. The problem, though, is that answer may conflict with our political self-determination.
Oh, it doesn't answer that political self-determination.
It may just it may decide it for us because it may because the U.S., we're trapped in all of this U.S. legal mumbo-jumbo, and this will just basically say that our only option is to move closer to the United States, not further away. And the thing is, as a colony, as a non-self-governing territory, the people here have the right to choose what they want next. Now, this is the right the United States doesn't like to respect. It doesn't like to admit that people have this right. But it is a right that we've been fighting for, that we've been fighting to get them to acknowledge for 30, 40 years. And so this case can infringe with that.
So Doc, basically what you're saying here is that should that case prevail, should prevail in the sense that the American Samoans that are born in American Samoa be granted U.S. citizenship, like we are here, and Puerto Ricans and all that, should that happen, the repercussions will us in the sense that, we have cases to take to the courts as well, and says, I'm a second-class citizen because of where I live, and we can probably prevail, and maybe, I seriously doubt it, that we'll get the rights and privileges to vote for president. But should we be given that right? And then now we want to move to self-determination. Now, wouldn't Congress come back and say, wait a minute, you want a closer relationship? Now you want to choose something else?
This is what sort of foiled things in the past, is that, the Commonwealth movement wanted everything. It wanted autonomy and independence. It also wanted inclusion, integration. It wanted it both ways. And we can't plan our future like that. We have to basically educate ourselves and then make a choice. What do we want? And so it shouldn't be courts that decide it. It shouldn't be the United States that decides it.
Sure.
It should really, really be us. And unfortunately, this may basically, if this case is decided for the defendants, then it may come, as we negotiate with the United States, as we have in the past, they may say, you don't really have any options. We've kind of already decided this. Your plebiscite, it's now kind of proven that it is completely unconstitutional.
Sure.
All of these sort of things which you guys have been doing, it's unconstitutional. Kind of, you're on this path now. You can't deviate from it. The late Tony Palomo, he had a very interesting way about talking about political status, and it always surprised me, because he was once asked in an interview if you could say anything to the people in the United States about Guam, to educate them about Guam, to tell them about Guam, what would you tell them? And he said, maybe I don't want the people in the United States to know too much about us. Maybe I like it if we have sort of our freedom out here. And it's kind of shocking because we're all used to thinking that we need to educate America so they'll respect us and they'll love us, they'll treat us like real Americans. But Tony Palomo said, you know, the more we educate them about us, maybe the more they'll take away from us. Maybe they'll look at us and say, hey, wait a second, you guys can't teach Chamorro language in schools and make everybody go. You know, you can't make them mandatory. You can't have a Chamorro Land Trust Act. You can't do this, you can't do that. And so Tony Palomo argued, it's good, it's nice to educate them, but if we educate them too much, they may decide to take everything away from us, and they won't let us choose anything for ourselves.
What you're saying as well, again, Doc, is this: should they prevail, and should that again be a case that we gravitate to and fight that and say, hey, look, we should be granted now because you granted them this, and this opens the door, basically opens Pandora's box, basically, right? To do that now, as you said. Will give now more credence to lawsuits that said, hey, you can't have a plebiscite. You can't let, the only people that were born, that were granted U.S. citizenship through the Organic Act, that they now are the only ones limited to vote on that. So it gives more credence again to that lawsuit should it pass, and should this that lawsuit or should they prevail in that lawsuit, and we climb on board of that, right?
So. Yeah, and this is, we're at a very delicate time, sort of in our process of decolonization. There is a lull, but we've got sort of cases out there. The Dave Davis case, the American Samoa case, and these can have huge ramifications. Now, I know that a lot of people are afraid of what they might choose, but one of the important things, though, is that we might actually get some decisions that we can work based on.
Well, one of the things, and I'll take it out of the words of the delegate of American Samoa, now he's got a bill in Congress to allow American Samoans to vote in their next election, whether or not they want U.S. citizenship, and let them decide. He says, hey, this is a question we've long asked ourselves, but now this is being forced upon us. If we don't decide what we want, if we cannot decide, someone may decide for us. So this plebiscite as well, I mean, that could apply to us as well. We say, hey, we need to move on this plebiscite issue, because if we don't, the courts may decide, and we may have no choice. We may never have that vote, is to say, and that political status that we may gravitate into, it won't be something that the people of Guam decide themselves, but have maybe as an infusion to get in there, that it's something that we would not have decided ourselves.
No, you're so right, and I hope that more people will understand that simple point, that sort of the right to self-determination is something which people, which colonized people get. And so many people on Guam so many Chamorros don't seem to care about it, don't seem to think about it, and almost seem to think that whatever the United States wants is probably best for us. But this is the thing which only belongs to us, no one else.
We'll be right back.